I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Around the nation, DYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Welcome to the show. Man, we got a good show for you guys today. We have, of course, Meghan McCain. Oh my God, this is the first on the show. We're not going to dunk on Meghan McCain. It is actually Meghan who shall be doing the dunking. Oh my goodness. So, you're going to love that story and also hate that story simultaneously. So we'll talk about that. It has, of course, to do with Michael Bloomberg. Then we've got Pete Buttigieg faking black support once again. Isn't that the first time? And I will explain and I will go through Buttigieg's history of trying to get black support and failing. We've got Leon Cooperman calling Bernie a communist. That's funny. Then we've got Bernie's press secretary going on CNN, pushing back against the newest call for medical records. So here we go with that BS again. And then we've got a Biden surrogate story from yesterday that has resigned and is now blaming the Bernie bros for pushing her out. Oof. So that's a story. Disaster. Let's get into it. Before we do, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. That's the only way that we can get the stream out. YouTube censorship, all that stuff. No longer gets recommended. My videos do not get recommended. Very, very rarely do they. And I know a lot of you can probably corroborate that who, watch the video clips. You'll notice that at the end, you will get sent off to either MSNBC, CNN, or Fox, or The Guardian, or anything like that. And so that's what's happening. It's happening all over the network. And of course, we need your help. So very, very important to share. Also consider supporting independent progressive media. All right. So now, with that, I suppose we ought to dive right into the stories here. And we'll start out with Meghan. So longtime viewers of the show know that Meghan McCain, whenever she's on the show, tends to get dunked on. Usually because of her ridiculous takes or the fact that she does 50 billion callbacks to her father. But on this occasion, it is Meghan that shall be doing the dunking. Take a look.
That's not something he said after a few drinks, like at dinner privately.
Exactly.
That's something he said on air. So where there's smoke, there's just one second.
Yeah.
He also there's a lawsuit the Washington Post dug up where he was sued for saying there was a woman who was having trouble finding a nanny for her child, and he said it's a blanking baby. It doesn't know the difference between you and anyone else. All you need is some black who doesn't even have to speak English to rescue it from a burning building.
All I have to say.
But I'm just saying, you want to go up against Trump and you want to take the moral high ground, Democrats. I don't know if this guy is going to be the one.
All I have to say, there are very fine people on both sides. That was in Charlottesville. Yeah. He said that removing Confederate monuments was trying to take away our culture.
But you want to take the moral high ground.
Belittled the Black Lives Movement. He questioned whether Barack Obama.
I'm not defending Trump because I'm attacking
who are you?
Bloomberg.
What are you saying then? Who are you going to vote for?
I'm saying that you're
you
shiny,
you
sparkly.
Democrat,
I'm saying you're shiny, sparkly guy who's surging right now. Which, by the way, everybody surges in primary politics.
Well, yeah, I
remember when Gingrich did and Herman Cain did. Every candidate surges at one point or another.
He still thinks the Central Park Five.
Because he's a sparkly little. Because you know what? I just think it's so interesting that you have a problem that we are talking about a candidate the way we would any other candidate. He just happens to be at the top getting the attention right now, which is why we're talking about it right now. What, I'm supposed to give Bloomberg a pass? Not on this show, not with this host.
I'd like to know who you're going to vote for. Who are you voting for?
Who I vote for is none of your business, but I am not voting for Trump, and I'm sure as hell not voting for Bloomberg.
So then you're not going to vote.
Okay?
So
it's
you're
none
not
of your
vote.
business.
Wow. Okay. So, man, dude. Joy Behar, total cringe during that entire segment. Well, who are you going to vote for? Who are you going to vote for? It's Meghan McCain. She's a conservative. She's not really going to vote for the Democrat anyway. And of course, Donald Trump has said mean things about her dad. So he actually even insinuated that her dad's in hell. Yeah, probably not going to vote for Trump either. So it is kind of weird that she's doing this whole blue no matter who, blue no matter who. Essentially, that's what she's doing. Who are you going to vote for? Oh, you're not going to vote? Well, you're going to let Trump win. As if she gives a crap. She wins. Even if Trump wins, she gets to keep her tax cuts. They're not going to touch her wealth whatsoever. And if Bloomberg wins, well, then he's not going to touch her tax cuts either. So either way, she's going to get her tax cuts. And so, but getting back to Joy Behar, the whataboutism, right? The both sides. Oh, no, it's both sides. I'm now going to bring up all the negative things that Donald Trump has done to counter what you're saying about Bloomberg. Do you know how much Meghan McCain actually cared about that? Not a damn bit. You know why? It's because, as she mentioned, pointing out the bad stuff that Donald Trump has done, which he has done plenty of, does not make what Bloomberg did any better. Because guess what? Bloomberg is Trump without the brain rot. And that's what this is. And only the people like who have this blue no matter who, blinders on, they're the only ones that can't seem to see that. So I don't understand, right? But look, when it comes to The View, I cannot believe people actually watch this. Seriously, though. Like, I'm totally on purpose, right? I mean, what I watch, I don't watch The View, right? I see, like, the clips and I see the stories and I'm like, oh, I got to talk about Meghan McCain. And she's gotten, dunked on this time, which is awesome. But at this time, no, Meghan McCain's absolutely correct. She's correct on this, and she makes a good point. You're not going to take out a racist, sexist billionaire with another racist, sexist billionaire. That's not going to happen. And it's sort of the most ridiculous thing that you could even think of. Now, there is one good thing about Bloomberg running. I know you guys, you're going to agree with me, right? The good thing is that this has basically pulled the mask off the resistance. We talk about, resistance. We got to resist Donald Trump, right? Oh, okay, resistance. I got a question for you, resistance folks. What are you resisting? I thought you were resisting Trump because he's a racist, sexist billionaire. And that he's out of touch with America. He's dangerous, right? Well, to me, now, with the support of Bloomberg, he is now second in national polls. So you cannot say that there is no support from Bloomberg. You got liberals out here, the people who were part of the Me Too movement, with Bloomberg's 64 sexual assault allegations, saying, you know what, I will support Bloomberg. It's because they're afraid of burning, right? And it turns out, we find out that the only reason that they resist Trump is because he says naughty things. Not because of the terrible policies, not because he locks little kids up in cages, which is absolutely abhorrent, right? Well, Michael Bloomberg basically did stop and frisk, which, targeted minorities. 90% of the stops from stop and frisk, by the way, did not lead to arrests. It was largely ineffective at fighting crime, but it did criminalize minorities. And not only that, But under Bloomberg, you also had massive surveillance of Muslims, young Muslim students. You had people going on trips, right? Agents watching these young Muslims go on like school trips. I mean, it's ridiculous. But a lot of these liberals will look at that and go, no, that's fine, but Trump bad. I mean, it's so ridiculous. And look, I guess some of these liberals would prefer polite fascism to Donald Trump's rude fascism, right? No, fascism is fascism, no matter what kind of face that you put on it, okay? And I guess it makes sense with all the talk from them about civility and, the fact that they're talking down to us all as we literally die from lack of health care. All the negative articles against Bernie bros or about Bernie bros, which, by the way, all of that entire narrative erases people, women of color, black and brown and yellow, our brothers and sisters and everyone in between. It completely erases that, okay? And just points it and tries to continue to perpetuate the myth of the white, affluent Bernie bro. It's ridiculous. And it turns out, hey, looks like they just don't like our tone. They don't care that we're dying. 68,000 people die from lack of healthcare in this country every single year. And the discussion that we have about it is a couple of mean tweets from angry Twitter folks. But back to Joy Behar. Again, she does the instinctive liberal thing, right? Of pointing out, because she thinks she's having an article with somebody or an argument with somebody who's pro-Trump, which McCain is not. I wouldn't be surprised if she was fine with Donald Trump for the reason that I laid out before, because all she cares about really is her taxes. But she does that, and it's just total cringe. It's not a defense. By now, you should know that Bloomberg has railed against raising the minimum wage, right? He's fought against restitution for the Central Park Five. That's what they brought up. They brought up Central Park Five. Well, look, Donald Trump took out a full-page ad in the New York Times after the exoneration of the Central Park Five. It says, we should execute them anyway. That's Donald Trump. But what we didn't know about Bloomberg, or what a lot of people might not know about Bloomberg, is that Bloomberg fought after the exoneration to prevent these people from getting any restitution from being wrongfully imprisoned for a crime that they didn't commit. Not as bad as Donald Trump, but again, it's the polite fascism versus the incredible rudeness of Donald Trump. And so not only that, but look, Bloomberg doesn't care about his employee. Now here's the thing. He pays him extremely well, and that has a problem too. The reason, he pays him so well, he's poaching people from other campaigns. And so that starves the other campaigns of personnel. And so that prevents a problem, or that presents a problem as well. He thinks the poor are stupid, right? That's the whole purpose of the soda tax. Oh, to prevent you poor people from paying more and hurting yourselves, or I'm sorry, from keeping your money and hurting yourselves, because you can't be trusted with your money because you're poor and stupid, right? All that stuff, right? The only thing that you can give Bloomberg any sort of credit for is his stances on gun regulations and the fact that he's given some of his money, which basically amounts to pocket change, to gun control groups and other philanthropic endeavors, right? But again, they all do that. All the wealthy people do. And it's a tax break. That's what it is. So even so, going back to guns, right? What's his big thing? His big policy to fight, against guns, to do gun control, stop and frisk. Which again, he says, well, that's going to be a deterrent, because if the police can stop and frisk you at any time and try to find a gun on you, you're just going to leave your gun at home. And he admitted that during an interview. And so, again, this is all about harassing minorities who didn't do crime. So look, if you do actually want to take the moral high ground with Trump, Bloomberg is not the guy to do it with. And so the last part, again, irritates me. Who are you going to vote for? Who are you going to vote for? Nobody? Why, enjoy Trump? Well, I bet she will. But here's the other thing that bothers me. Okay. We're in a primary right now. It's not as if we're stuck with those two choices. Don't act like we're in a general election. And I feel like some of the people who are arguing for Bloomberg are already basically saying, hey, it's essentially over. Bloomberg's your only choice to take on Donald Trump. So you go line up, bow down, kiss the ring, and support Bloomberg. Well, I say, hell no, we're not, because we still have a primary, and Bernie Sanders is the current frontrunner. I know they still can't believe that somebody like Bernie Sanders could actually be leading the field, that people actually would want to vote for somebody, but he's a socialist. No, he's got incredibly popular policy. He is an FDR Democrat. He is the New Deal, he's promoting New Deal policies that are extremely popular with the electorate. And guess what? That's why he's popular. That's why he's leading. But see, look, if you think that we're going to shame people, or you're going to be able to shame people into voting for a smarter Trump over someone like Bernie Sanders, you are deeply mistaken. Deeply, deeply mistaken. You don't want to take that gamble of nominating Bloomberg. Believe me, there will be 4 more years of Donald Trump, guaranteed. I mean, whatever happened to Behar anyway? I thought she used to have some decent takes. Now she just posting cringe, man. Now she's losing arguments to Meghan frickin' McCain. What is going on here? I think personally it's illustrative of how Bloomberg entering this race has broken liberal brains by making them pretzel themselves to support him over Donald Trump. Nothing makes sense anymore. And this is more proof. All right. Insanity. Total insanity. Moving on here. Pete Buttigieg has a little bit of a problem. He continues to have a problem getting African Americans to support him. He actually scores some of the lowest on polls when it comes to support from the African American community, which is really important if you want to win the Democratic nomination and go on to win the election. Now, a lot of this is from likely his racist history in South Bend when he was mayor, much of which, of course, I and other independent media had actually talked about before. One example of that, of course, is the firing of the first African-American police chief in that area, while white supremacist officers had targeted Pete's donors. So that's an interesting story. It's broken by Jonathan Larson over at TYT Investigates. And if you haven't read it already, you probably should go there and take a look. It's a damning story where you had these white supremacist police officers on the force saying, finally, we're going to take the city back for us, meaning the white people. Okay. And they said, we're going to go after Pete's donors and they're going to do whatever we tell them to. And Pete's going to do whatever we tell him to. And that's exactly what happened. Now, so that's one of many other issues, right? Now, one way to get around that is to take ownership of your failures in South Bend, right? It would at least, yes, seem earnest. And, maybe then afterwards go and try to listen to the Black community and hear their concerns and actually try to, do something about it, right? Show that you're willing to listen and willing to do something about it. Now, the other way is this fake Black support. Now, want to guess which way Pete went? We already know. The newest example is when Buttigieg had touted support from African-American comedian and actor Keegan-Michael Key. So, look, I remember this, right? He's the other half of Key and Peele. I enjoy those guys. One of his most famous roles was Obama's anger translator. So it kind of bummed me out, right, to see that, that guy, Buttigieg, why would you support Pete Buttigieg of all people? Right? Now, his campaign, after news of that came out, was forced to admit, oh, yeah, you know that whole key thing? Yeah, get that endorsement? That wasn't an actual endorsement. Turns out, nope, he was just in favor of our, what was it? Encouraging early voting and voter registration. And that's what Key was out there, right? He was out there talking about, he was out there with Buttigieg on Saturday to get voter support, right? Now, is it kind of a pseudo endorsement? Well, let's go to Key here. He actually had said that he didn't endorse. Okay, so look, again, it's not the first time that happened, right? Now, the Buttigieg campaign, in several instances reviewed by ABC News, had identified people as supporters who later said that their interactions had been both misunderstood and misconstrued. So that's really important, right? Now, the first instance came in October. I talked about this story. The campaign issued a press release in South Carolina that identified Rehoboth Baptist pastor and state representative Ivory Thigpen and Johnny Cordero, chairman of the Democratic Black Caucus, as backers of the candidate's Douglas Plan for Black America. Now, the Douglas Plan for Black America is fairly detailed, a pretty decent plan. I'm not against the plan at all. But the way that they went about showing that there was support for that plan within the African-American community was very problematic. So now Cordero, for example, said, hey, look, I never endorsed the Douglas Plan. Not because it's a bad plan, but people have got to understand you cannot talk for Black people. We're very capable of speaking for ourselves. Now, Thigpen is another case entirely, right? He's literally a Bernie Sanders co-chair in South Carolina. Bernie Sanders supporter, right? Now, Thigpen is like, wait a minute. Hold on here. I'm not endorsing or supporting Pete Buttigieg. And I'll get more of the details later because it is kind of amazing. Now, another issue with the Douglas Plan, right? Again, not so much with the plan, but with the supporters. They claimed that there were 400 supposedly Black supporters of this plan. Turns out, upon review, 42% of those people who claimed that they support it were actually white. It's supposed to be all Black supporters. Almost half of them were white. So, wow. So, again, it's not that the plan is bad. It's just the fact that he is claiming support for it, and by extension, his own candidacy, where it doesn't exist. Now, another example here. Last week, Buttigieg wrote an op-ed in a major South Carolina newspaper saying his campaign has proudly partnered with local businesses, citing Diane's Kitchen in Chester and Atlanta's restaurant in Moncks Corner. When ABC News reached out to the entrepreneurs about these new partnerships, they only remembered welcoming Buttigieg's campaign as customers, not forging any sort of partnership with the candidate. Diane Cole, owner of Diane's Kitchen, said, quote, I stand for what I stand for, and I didn't say we had a partnership. Now, if that's not bad enough, later on, the Buttigieg campaign, after she came out and said that, right? We're not in a partnership with the Buttigieg campaign. You just came as customers, and that was fine. We welcome all customers. Buttigieg campaign says, can you change those words to make it sound more like what we wrote? One version, by the way, even had her name misspelled. That's amazing. By the way, Diane is in favor, not of Buttigieg, but she's weighing Biden or Bloomberg. So it's not as if she's a Bernie person or anything like that. But you got to be honest about where she stands, and she does not stand with Buttigieg, even though she welcomes the campaign, of course, into her establishment as customers, which is absolutely fine. So that is amazing. Amazing. Now, Cole told ABC News that she rejected the initial requests, telling the campaign, it sounds like you're saying that I'm your business partner. I'm only going to accept that you all stopped in while you were campaigning in South Carolina, and I welcomed you all. And from the sound of it, that welcome's probably about to wear out. What a disaster. A disaster. So there's a theme that goes on in all of these. The campaign keeps saying, man, it kind of sounds like an endorsement, so we're going to take it and we're just going to run with it until you say otherwise. And then, of course, they do say otherwise because it's definitely not an endorsement. And so it's kind of embarrassing, right? I mean, in every instance, the either celebrity or the black business owner has to come out and say, actually, no, I did not endorse that person. What are you talking about? And then it makes news. But here's the thing. This is kind of on purpose, I think, right? That's my opinion on this. And the reason I come to that conclusion is because they use vague language in their press releases, right? And they put something out that people might generally agree with. They get it on the record of people agreeing with it and then interpret that as an endorsement. And then they trumpet that endorsement or non-endorsement endorsement, right? Now they do that probably knowing that they're going to get caught, but it's already out there. It's already out there. And I think a lot of people, a lot of news does not talk about this. You will not see this on MSNBC. I don't think you saw the original reporting on MSNBC. Buttigieg literally faking black support. You will not see this on CNN or MSNBC. I mean, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous, right? Now, back to Thigpen, right? Now, Thigpen, he adds another layer to this. He was approached by a campaign staffer to review the Douglas plan and to give his feedback. Well, Thigpen was very clear. Hey, I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter. I mean, I'll take a look at it and maybe I'll put out a statement about it because I'm interested, right? And actually, he says there's parts in it that's pretty good. For example, closing the wealth gap. That's something, of course, that Bernie Sanders is very, interested in doing, talking about the wealth gap, Elizabeth Warren as well. And so anything that's there that closes the white gap or the wealth gap between white and black people and white and black families and communities, great, wonderful. So now he says that, right? But he says, I can't endorse the plan or endorse the candidate just to make sure it would get in the way of my support of Bernie Sanders. Now, later on, a campaign staffer decided to email him. And by the way, none of these people actually talked with Buttigieg. It was all of his campaign staffers. So I think Buttigieg is trying to just stay out of the fray, essentially, by not having any contact with any of these people. Now, the staffer wrote him requesting approval of quotes they had drafted on Thigpen's behalf. These are not quotes from Thigpen himself. This is some staffer sat down, wrote a quote out, and said, hey, can we use that? Do you endorse this? Now, the kicker is, and you're going to love this, Thigpen says, quote, they sent an email basically saying if individuals want to opt out of being listed as an endorser, then they needed to respond to the email by 4 p.m. I didn't see the email, and so of course I didn't respond to it, so they moved forward with my name. What in the Nigerian prince kind of crap is that? Really? I mean, that sounds like a scam, because it is a scam. Holy crap. That's the Pete campaign. Hey, man, look, it's not my fault you missed the email. Maybe you should have checked your junk folder. Well, I shouldn't have to, because you just put words in my mouth and then put me as an endorser to something that I definitely didn't endorse because I've already endorsed a candidate. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. Now, Thigpen later on called them, right, to ask them to correct this release, as he should, of course. The campaign, he said, was contrite, quote, attributing it to a miscommunication. Hey, man, that's your fault. You didn't communicate with us, so it's a miscommunication that we accidentally put a press release for you endorsing not only our plan, but our candidate as well. Oops, you're bad. Sorry that happened. Oh my God. Jesus. So, but look, that's what they do, right? It's the pattern, it's their purpose. How low is the Buttigieg campaign going to go to try to trick people? And that's what they're doing. I think out of any campaign, they play the dirtiest. Look at Iowa. Thankfully, not a lot of people are buying it. In fact, I think nobody's buying it except for the MSNBC types who completely ignore everything and still think that Bernie Sanders has a lack of black support. Which, by the way, he has a lot of African American support and Latino support. And so he does incredibly well with younger people of color. But you're not going to learn any of that on MSNBC, and you're certainly not going to hear about Pete Buttigieg faking support with African Americans. There's a reason for that. Yeah. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We have Leon Cooperman crying about Bernie Sanders, and then more stuff. So a lot of interesting stuff, so stay right here. Please, super chats, read those. Thank a few members as soon as we come back. Stay right here around the nation.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, TWT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Okay, so I have a couple of patrons to thank. I want to thank brand new patron Jake Jonas, and then David Ventimiglia. So thank you. Member comment here from Ann Anderson, who says about Pete Buttigieg, that is such a Trump-like ballsy move. Yeah, I mean, it's something all right. All right. Anyway, couple of super chats as well. It's a way to support the show. Mistake Not just says thumbs up from Scotland. Thank you. Glad to have international viewers. David Richardson says hello or kia ora from New Zealand. Keep these going wherever you can. Texan turning Kiwi will keep watching and continue supporting Bernie. Thank you. And congratulations on your move. Hopefully, I hear it's lovely in New Zealand. So it's where they shot Lord of the Rings. That's what I know about New Zealand. It's very beautiful. Maybe go there one day. And first, PC Ferret says, I always said Pete Buttigieg sounds like a crypto Republican. Sure is acting like one. Yeah. No, you're not wrong about that. All right. Again, super chats help the show. Thank you for sending those in. Thank you for becoming patrons as well. Patreon.com/TYTNation or channel members. All right. Moving on here. Let's go to Cooperman. Billionaire Leon Cooperman is not thrilled about the possible nomination of Senator Bernie Sanders and the possibility that he could become president. And he has a few choice words. Take a look.
I look at Bernie Sanders as a bigger threat than the coronavirus. How's that?
Well, I mean, first it was Elizabeth Warren. Now you've moved on to Bernie.
In all honesty, I don't have any insight into the coronavirus beyond what everybody else has. But I assume when all the great minds in the scientific world focus on this problem, that in 3 or 4 months, this will become resolved, much the way SARS and the Ebola virus was dealt with. Bernie Sanders, if you listen to his proposals, it's only a $6 trillion annual deficit. I think also he's misrepresenting himself. He is not a socialist, but he's rather a communist. And there's a difference between a socialist and a communist. Socialists advocate a redistribution of wealth. The communists advocate nationalizing the means of production and tearing down the house that wealth is built. And all you got to do is read the Wall Street Journal editorial this past Saturday on Bernie and understand what he stands for. And the fact that he's doing so well in the polls is troublesome. You know, I just hope the country is not prepared to elect a communist or socialist. If we do, I think that the market is in store for a big problem.
Oh, does billionaire have a sad? Your tears are delicious, very salty. So look, obviously this guy is 100% incorrect, basically about everything. But let me focus on what's important here. Bernie Sanders, he's misrepresenting himself. He's a communist. Oh, he wants to take over, have the government take over industry. No. Look, he's nowhere near a communist or a socialist. In reality, he's an FDR New Deal Democrat. Everything he is trying to do is basically what every other industrialized modern country has already done. Universal health care through the government, through a single payer option. A lot of other countries have that. Canada, for example, the UK, another example. Denmark, another example, right? I'm sure those are all communist countries, though, right? No, that would be incorrect. The Scandinavia, also not communists, right? But it is kind of hilarious how people like Cooperman, right? Either A, don't understand the difference between communism, socialism, and social democracy, or B, they do actually understand, but they fearmonger because of one simple truth. They don't want their taxes to go up. I know he's like, oh my God, I'm so afraid of what's going to happen with the markets. Oh, the poor markets. And I love how they speak about the markets as if it's a person, as if it's alive, right? It's ridiculous. But no, I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the market if Bernie Sanders gets elected. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot that happens to the market, to be honest with you. But look, they don't want their taxes to go up, and they don't want their finances, their financial transactions to be taxed. They don't want regulations on Wall Street, which is insane because regulations on Wall Street is basically the only thing that makes sure we're not going to get crashes every few years that destroy the economy. The fact that we no longer have those regulations in place, or that they're severely weak and watered down, is why we continue to have this boom bust cycle. I don't know about you, but that's not a good thing to have. I mean, it's great for CEOs to get golden parachutes for essentially driving their their companies into the ground, and the country into the ground as well. And hedge fund managers whose job mainly is to spend other people's money and then getting paid for doing that. I mean, it's great for them, but what about everybody else? The markets, Wall Street, does not represent Main Street, does not represent regular people. And so I would also argue, by the way, based on the examples of golden parachutes and giant bank bailouts like we gave to JP Morgan, that we already have socialism in America. We have socialism for the rich. And so they get tax rates, they get subsidies, they get bailouts, they get sweetheart deals in the middle class and the working class. We get screwed over. And people like Cooperman love that system. They want to protect that system because they get rich off that system. They want to protect the for-profit healthcare system, which, by the way, now 68,000 people die each year because they cannot afford healthcare. People are rationing their insulin. People are choosing to, buy the insulin over their heart medication, or buying their heart medication over the insulin was the actual example. And people, I mean, they're making that choice because they don't have a choice. People like Cooperman will never, ever understand that. But please, tell me how dangerous Bernie Sanders is. Give me a break. Now, Cooperman wasn't the only one on Wall Street worried. You also had Double Line CEO Jeffrey Gundlach calling Sanders the biggest risk to financial markets in 2020. Again, the market, it almost seems like it's a religion to them, right? Oh, we must pray to the markets, right? We must prostrate ourselves down to the markets, down to the gods of finance. Please shower us with your infinite wealth. It's ridiculous. No, we should have more control over the markets so that the markets don't have more control over us. Regulation, we need some. But look, the thing is about them that scares Bernie Sanders so much is that they don't want their greed, their rampant greed and profiteering to be reined in whatsoever. Very simple. Very simple. Now, there's one more note here, and that's who's actually telling the truth here. So now, Leon Cooperman says, oh, Bernie Sanders is a communist. He's not even a socialist. He's a communist. We can't have that. Donald Trump, oh, Bernie Sanders is a communist, right? Well, now Richard Painter, who is George W. Bush's ethics lawyer, right? He actually made this point on Twitter. He says, quote, and this is in response to a scaremongering article about, how people like Bernie Sanders, but they hate socialism, right? He said, quote, it's actually time to stop worrying about socialism. Nothing Senator Sanders has in its platform will happen without the majority of both houses of Congress. Well, look, that's actually true. There are certain ways to get certain things through, budget reconciliation, etc., and there are different legislative tricks, but in general, in order to pass sweeping reform, you would need somebody who knows how to twist arms and, get people to work with him. Well, guess what? Who better than the Amendment King to actually get people to try to work on him, as well as, of course, the election with a lot of progressives involved that might win and help propel his legislative efforts. But Painter continues by saying, what could real Donald Trump do without the consent of Congress? Destroy human civilization in about 20 minutes. So he's saying, look, Donald Trump is way more dangerous than somebody like Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders isn't stupid enough to destroy the earth. Whereas Donald Trump, it's a no-brainer, right? He adds, quote, and to boot, nothing in the Bernie Sanders platform is real socialism, which means state ownership of major industries. He may have dreamed about that in his younger days, but right now, all he is suggesting is more FDR-style New Deal legislation. Understand that this guy is very conservative. And even he's pointing out, no, that's not communism, that's not socialism, that's FDR New Deal-style Democrat policies. Nothing to worry about. Stop freaking out. When George W. Bush's ethics lawyer is more honest about Bernie Sanders than anyone on CNBC, right? Because that's all you see Leon Cooperman on, right? They just keep letting him on because he's a billionaire, right? Even though he spews garbage. And also MSNBC. I mean, MSNBC is supposed to be the left-wing channel, right? Was supposed to be, right? Well, they're obviously not, because they continue to lie about Bernie Sanders. How many times has Chris Matthews said, well, yeah, he's a socialist, he's a socialist. I don't know if he'd be cheering on people trying to execute me in Central Park. You know, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's Denmark. Or maybe it's not. Or maybe they're going to try to kill me because he loves Fidel and praises. Look, that's all the garbage that you hear on MSNBC. And this guy, Painter, is like, no, that's not true at all. Normal FDR New Deal style stuff. There it is. And so, look, you know, from the reaction, though, from these people, very powerful people, that they are afraid of losing just a little bit of their wealth. And mainly, and more importantly, because it's not about the wealth, these additional taxes on the wealthy that Bernie Sanders is proposing to fund some of his policy priorities will not have a gigantic impact on rich people. Leon Cooperman's still going to be a billionaire, right? Jeff Bezos still going to be a billionaire, although slightly less, because he hasn't said, I'm going to get rid of billionaires, right? So they're still going to be very wealthy, but what they're going to miss is a lot of their influence on the political system. And that is something that they cannot stand to lose. Okay. Wow. Okay. Moving on here. Okay. And Mr. Elder in the chat says, MSNBC is such trash. Agreed. Agreed. All right. Now, Bernie Sanders' National Press Secretary, Brianna Joy Gray, was recently on CNN defending the frontrunner's refusal to release some so-called medical records or additional medical records that a lot of people in the establishment have been calling for. And she makes an interesting comparison between the calls for those medical records and something else that other people have called for. Take a look.
I don't think we will release any more medical records. I have those 3 letters from the doctors that Senator Sanders was talking about. There's nothing in them other than the doctor saying that he's fit. He had a heart attack.
Yeah, well,
he had a heart attack in the fall. Do you think the American people deserve to know more about his health going forward?
I think that the American people deserve to know exactly as much as every other candidate has released in this race currently and historically. And what you're seeing right now is really reminiscent of some of the kind of smear, kind of skepticism campaigns that have been run against a lot of different candidates in the past, questioning where they're from, aspects of their lineage, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really telling, given that none of the same concern is being demonstrated for Michael Bloomberg, who's the same age as Bernie Sanders, who has suffered heart attacks in the past. And what we're seeing is a kind of smear campaign from the likes of Jennifer Rubin is one that's been beating this drum a lot. Republicans who, if they were honest with themselves, don't support Bernie Sanders for other reasons, largely for the same reasons that millions of working Americans do support Bernie.
All right, so now in it, you heard that she said, well, hey, look, Bloomberg has had some heart attacks as well. Well, that turns out to be not true, right? And so what happened is that mainstream media immediately, everyone flipped out. How dare you lie about Bloomberg? It's not the same. And then, additionally, they go after her reference to birtherism. Now, I think that if you take out the racial undertones in birtherism and you look at, what they're demanding, we're demanding proof. We want document upon document upon document to make sure that you are healthy enough to run for president of the United States. Well, just follow him around as he goes from rally to rally to rally, state to state to state. I mean, seriously, you can't keep up with the guy. But that is not enough. They want to see even more medical records, which, by the way, Sanders released three documents here from doctors saying that he was fit and in good health after the stents. But no, it's not enough. Not enough. They must have more. They must have full medical records, which that's not even really a thing, right? It's not something at least that you can release to the public, especially since you have things like privacy and HIPAA laws. And so it's pretty ridiculous. And it does remind me a lot, without the racial component, of people asking Obama for his birth certificate. And so her point that she makes is absolutely valid, right? And I think it's a similar tactic. No one who's asking for Bernie's medical records is somebody who's considering supporting Bernie Sanders anyway. She pointed out Jennifer Rubin, who is a bad faith actor, who's a Bernie Sanders critic, and by the way, a Republican strategist. Or you have people like Tom Watson, who's Bernie Sanders anti-Bernie troll. Basically people who hate Bernie Sanders and are desperate to not have him become the Democratic nominee. These are the same people that are now out there going after a woman of color, Breonna Joy Gray, and saying, how dare you compare this to Obama? It's not the same. It's not the same. But wait, same principle. The whole purpose was to cast doubt. Oh no, he's not healthy, so he's ineligible. Oh, he wasn't born in America, he's not eligible. Either way, he's not eligible to run. So he just needs to get out, to bow out, and let someone that we want run in their place. Now, look, if Bernie Sanders was struggling to talk, was struggling to breathe, if he was lugging around oxygen tanks and, especially pale, and you could tell if somebody's not in good health, sometimes by just looking at them, right? I would see their point. I would. And even though I like Bernie Sanders, I would say, hey, maybe we should think about somebody who's a little bit healthier. He's not looking so good. Maybe you shouldn't be running for president, right? Instead, what he's doing is he looks healthy. I've seen him in person. I've seen him at a recent rally. Yes, that's after he got the stents put in. He was energetic. He looked fantastic. And he had been running all over the country, did not look tired whatsoever. And so I'm starting to wonder, what is this even about? Because it doesn't seem to be about his health. It doesn't seem to be about somebody who actually, or people who actually care about how this man is doing, right? And so it's not about his health. It's about what can they do to sow doubt in people's minds. Oh, well, he's 78 years old. Well, Bloomberg is the same age. Bloomberg hasn't had a heart attack. That's true, but he has had stents put in. He has atrial fibrillation, which is just an irregular heartbeat. That's nothing to really worry about. I'm not worried about Bloomberg's health. I'm not worried about Bernie's health. they both seem to be in pretty good health. I'm worried about Trump's mental health because he seems to be melting down in real time, maybe from all the hamburgers and, fries and Diet Cokes. But Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg, again, seem to be in pretty good health, seem to take pretty good care of themselves, especially Bloomberg, since, he's wealthy and can afford all the best medicine and all that. And so whatever, right? But again, they're trying to sow this or create this narrative, and it's effective. And yeah, I mean, again, a lot like the birtherism movement in a way. Any day now, Trump's going to come back with the documents that prove Obama is ineligible because he's not a citizen. Any day, Bernie Sanders is going to release his medical records, and then we're going to find out that he's super unhealthy. Wait, what? Or that he's lying about it, because what exactly do they hope to find in these records anyway? What do they hope to find? Guy's healthier than I am. So I don't understand. The one mistake that Brianna made, and she had come back and she said, whoops, yeah, I made a mistake when I said that on air, is that, again, she made she confused the procedure used on Bloomberg or what had happened, saying he had a heart attack. He didn't. But the procedure was he did get some stents, so that was correct. But the overall point is 100% correct, is that no one else is facing questions about their medical records, despite other candidates having at one time, just like all of us, health issues. Biden had a blood clot, a brain aneurysm, which, by the way, he released in a medical report, just like the ones Bernie Sanders had released, without going through the detailed medical records that they're asking for. That would be a HIPAA violation. They just released, hey, doctor's statement says Biden's pretty healthy. He's fit to run. Great. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. Same thing with everyone. Now, Trump's a little bit different. And I know they love to say, well, what Bernie Sanders is doing is Trumpian. No, Trumpian is going and making your doctor forge something, right? And to say, and actually, no, what's Trumpian is writing it out yourself, giving it to the doctor and say, sign this. Well, what does it say? Oh, it says I am in the best, Donald Trump is in the bestest shape ever and is tremendously healthy. All right, good enough. That's Trumpian, right? Bernie Sanders didn't do that. There's no evidence of that. And so it just seems like a ridiculous attack. Okay. And so, look, Gray, again, she corrected herself because she cares about facts. I care about facts. She said Bloomberg had a stent procedure back in 2000, added that Bernie released the 3 detailed medical reports, just like the other candidates. And so that's why I'm not worried. Now, one thing this also reminds me of, other than birtherism, is, again, without the racial component, right, is when Hillary Clinton fainted. And a bunch of people, many from the right, some even from the left, let's be honest, they went crazy over it. We did not on this show. I didn't. I was like, okay, yeah, that happens. But some of the response was, oh my God, what happened? She's got Parkinson's. No, that's ridiculous. No, the right wing, of course, took this to crazy land and came up with conspiracies that Hillary Clinton died and that's her body double, which is insane, or just a body double because she's deathly ill. It's just insane stuff. Leave it to Republicans to go completely off the rails, right? And that's the more extreme version of this. Again, this is being promoted by Republican strategists, people like Jennifer Rubin, right? And so that's why Gray addressed that and called her out by name, which I thought was pretty fantastic. But you can see the mainstream media, they're making this a big issue because, nothing else seems to work. The constant attacks on, Bernie Sanders fans, the bros, right? That falls flat because it's not at all true. He's not a Democrat. That didn't work, especially since Bloomberg is also not a Democrat. So now notice how they're no longer using that attack, right? So now they go to, he's not healthy. He's not healthy. He should release he's refusing to release his health records. There must be something in there. No, it's ridiculous. It's a super desperate move for super desperate defenders of the status quo. Embarrassing. All right. Still haven't got to that Biden story. Jesus Christ. I will have to get to that tomorrow. Trust me. That story is not going away. So we'll do that tomorrow. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. I will do that story the very first story. So don't worry about that. All right. So thank you for the super chats. Please consider becoming a patron or subscribing to the channel here, youtube.com/TYTNation and patreon.com/TYTNation to support us or become a channel member. So thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.